Hello. To start off today, I've just got to share some of my biggest backyard bird success that I've ever had so far. The day that I recorded these videos, there were goldfinches, house finches, black-capped chickadees, and Eurasian-colored doves in my ash tree and on my bird bath, all at the same time. That's the most bird diversity that I've seen in my yard all at once, and I was stoked. So that seems like some good vibes to start off this video. So now that you've gotten a good solid dose of cute, let's get into my most recent project. I've decided that my art studio just needs a full refresh, and to start that off, I'm going to paint a mural because I think it'll really set the mood of the room and it feels like the messiest project most likely. And then I'll just keep slowly adding other things like painting the other walls and the closet doors, getting a desk, redoing the floor, etc. But it's going to take a lot of time. So this video will kick off a series of videos of my process of painting this mural and potentially other projects. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I started off by taping off all the edges of the wall, and now I'm removing the texture from the wall by spreading a thin layer of putty over all of the textured spots, and then I'll just sand that off once it's dry. I painted a mural in my living room a few years ago, which has been the background for all of my previous videos, so you can see it there. And I just left the texture on the wall, and I've regretted it ever since because I think it's distracting from the actual painting. But I've never done this particular process before to try to remove the texture, so I'm kind of just seeing how it goes. I initially tried just hand sanding the putty off, but holy shit, it was a pain in the ass. It did not work very well. It was quite tiring, and I just didn't feel like I had the patience to be thorough enough. But have no fear, I had a sudden realization that my brother-in-law is temporarily storing his power sander in my garage, so that was perfect. I decided to try that, and I cannot stress enough how much easier it was and how much better of a job it did than just me and my good old elbow grease. So that was a huge relief. However, I did not consider how dusty it would be, so after I'd been sanding for like 20 minutes, I looked around and everything in the room was literally 2 shades lighter than it was before. So, in the future, I will cover everything in tarps or blankets or something before I get started on this process. The only other problem I ran into was the cord length, and I couldn't find my extension cord, so I just went with two power strips plugged into each other, and it worked well enough. Once I got all the logistics figured out, it was just a whole lot of time hanging out and slowly sanding away. This part of the process was easily the most time-consuming step of the wall prep. I think partially because I should have spread the putty on a little thinner so that there wasn't quite as much to sand off, so I'll keep that in mind for next time. As I mentioned before, it was really dusty, so the next day I decided to be a little bit smarter and I put on my snowboarding face scarf thing so that I wasn't breathing in quite as much joint compound dust, and that definitely felt a little bit better on my lungs. You may be sitting there watching this video and thinking, what the hell are they doing? There's a much better way to do that thing. And if you are, then you can just go ahead and leave a comment down below because I would actually love to hear if anyone has ideas for how I could do this better or more efficiently for future murals. But I've been having fun figuring out some of these things as I go. I got the wall as smooth as I felt like I reasonably could with the time I was willing to spend on it, and then I just wiped the dust off the walls and retaped a few spots that had gotten ripped up a bit from the sander. Then it was time for primer. I'm honestly not sure if this was a necessary step because I'm painting the walls black, and so the white and tan colors will be covered by that pretty easily. But I was worried about the leftover putty texture. I don't want there to be obvious blobs of different texture on the wall, and I had some leftover primer anyway, so I decided to play it safe this time. I do have a bit of wiggle room though, because this is going to be a stormy sky piece. I'm going to keep it fairly dark, actually quite dark, and it'll be a lot of clouds and lightning and sun rays and just overall a simple but hopefully striking piece. But since it'll be clouds, it'll be somewhat abstract and flowy, so I think that most flaws in the wall and in the background paint themselves will incorporate pretty well into the artwork, so I think that it won't be super obvious in the finished product, hopefully. Fingers crossed. After the primer dried, I could still see a few spots that I'd missed with the putty, so I did a few touch-ups on the most dramatically obvious areas. I can still see a little bit of texture left over, but it seems fairly impossible to make it perfectly smooth without being obscenely particular, so I'm just aiming for mostly smooth. Especially because the clouds, should hide some of that texture pretty well, like I said. So yeah, once I got the few spots that I puttied again touched up, I just went over them again with primer. I came back a couple days later to do the funnest part so far, which is the black paint layer. And just look at those strips of black. It was so satisfying in contrast to the white wall. I feel like the primer is worth it, honestly, just for the drama of this part. This black paint that I got is super thick and nice and was so fun to use. It covered the white super easily, and I was really tempted to just do one coat since I'll be painting more on top anyway. But after it dried, I could still see some really small white spots, so even though it's not in this video, I did end up doing a second coat. And now the wall is officially prepped. I hope you're excited for the next video because I'll be getting going on painting the actual art next time. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.